I overheard my wife plotting a baby trap on her new boyfriend. Months later, she announced a pregnancy, so I played the recording at her engagement party. Can you imagine finding out your own wife helped her sister trap an innocent man with a baby? My world just shattered, and now I'm facing a moral dilemma that could destroy my entire life, and maybe even my marriage. It all started innocently enough. About 2 months ago, I was in the kitchen, just making some snacks for my wife and me, and she was in the living room, chatting with her sister, Jasmine. At first, it was just background noise, typical sister talk. But then, a few words cut through the chatter, and suddenly, I froze. Jasmine was gushing about this new guy, David. Her voice was just overflowing with hope, pure happiness. She sounded like she'd met the one, even though they'd only been dating a few weeks. She couldn't stop talking about how he treated her, how special he made her feel. She talked about a future with him, marriage, settling down. And honestly, I was happy for her. Truly. See, you gotta understand Jasmine's background. Her life hasn't been easy. She's a single mom. Her first pregnancy was an accident, a one-night stand. She never even knew who the father was. So her child grew up without a dad. Being a single mother is brutal, and my wife and I have always tried to help her out. We've bought groceries, formula, diapers, even loaned her thousands of dollars, never expecting anything back. We're blessed, so why not share, right? Especially with someone who genuinely struggles. It's been heartbreaking to watch her try to find a good man. So many guys just couldn't handle her having a kid, or they were total deadbeats. Some even got jealous of her own son. But Jasmine, bless her heart, always put her child first. She'd cut them off at the first red flag. There was one time, though it got really bad. She dated a guy for 3 months, thought he was different. Turns out, he neglected her son when he was babysitting, just played video games while the kid cried, hungry. When she found out, she was furious. She ended it, but he turned violent. My wife and I had to step in, physically force him out. It was terrifying, and it just hammered home how careful Jasmine needed to be. So, hearing her talk about David, this new guy, he sounded like a dream come true. Stable job, good family, responsible. And the biggest thing? He actually cared about her son. He played with him, bonded with him. That meant everything. She kept telling my wife how much she wished she could marry him right away, but she was terrified of scaring him off. She just wanted a way to express that desire without, being too much. And that's when it happened. My wife, in this lighthearted, almost joking way, just blurted it out. She laughed, loud, and told Jasmine, "Well, if you want him that bad, you could always just baby trap him." And then they both just erupted in laughter. Now, I tried to convince myself it was just a joke, casual sister banter. But something about it just didn't sit right. The thought of trapping someone with a baby, even as a joke, felt totally off. I wasn't sure if Jasmine would take it seriously, but I kept listening, my stomach doing little flips. Then, my wife went further. She said, so casually, "If you're really serious about him, just stop taking your birth control." Like it was no big deal. Just a little trick to get the future she wanted. The idea of deliberately deceiving someone, of bringing a child into the world just to force a man into a relationship, felt utterly, profoundly wrong. I wanted to march in there, to yell, to tell them how awful an idea this was. But I didn't want to start a fight, didn't want to look like I was eavesdropping. So I just stood there, waiting for Jasmine's reaction. And instead of brushing it off as a bad joke, Jasmine actually exclaimed that it was a good idea. She said she wouldn't mind having a child with him, and even if he wasn't ready for marriage now, getting pregnant would probably change his mind. In her head, once she was carrying his child, he'd be forced to step up, to marry her, to give her that stable family she'd always dreamed of. She talked about it like it was a foolproof strategy, a way to secure her life. That's where I drew the line. I couldn't just stand there silently while Jasmine seriously considered manipulating someone into marriage. This was family. I had to prevent her from making such a colossal mistake. So, I walked out of the kitchen, straight into the living room, and firmly told them, "This is really bad advice." I looked Jasmine dead in the eye. I made it clear, if she truly wanted a future with David, she needed to be honest. Going off birth control behind his back wasn't just wrong. It was a massive betrayal of trust. I told her, if he ever found out, he would never forgive you. A child should never be used to force someone into a relationship. He might even resent the child. I reminded her they'd only known each other for a few weeks. That's not enough time for a decision this huge. If they were meant to be, she wouldn't need to trick him. She needed to build a real connection, have an honest conversation. My words clearly caught her off guard. But I didn't care. She needed to hear it. My wife, though? She scoffed, her face twisting into annoyance. She snapped at me. Why are you butting into our girl talk? Accused me of eavesdropping, wanted to know how much I'd heard. I apologized for overhearing, explained I hadn't meant to, but I stood my ground. I told them after hearing my wife give such terrible advice, I couldn't stay quiet. I wasn't trying to control anything. I just wanted to protect Jasmine from a mistake that could ruin her relationship, her entire life. But my wife wasn't having it. She rolled her eyes, saying I had no idea what I was talking about because I wasn't a woman. She insisted I couldn't understand Jasmine's challenges, her urgency. She argued Jasmine couldn't just wait around. She's getting older, my wife said. Her biological clock is ticking. She has to be proactive. I was stunned. The idea that deception was justified because of a biological clock? It felt so wrong. In that moment, I realized my wife and I saw things very differently. To me, this wasn't about gender. It was about basic honesty, basic integrity. Then, to my absolute shock, Jasmine actually agreed with my wife. She looked at me and said that even if pregnancy didn't lead to marriage, at least this time, she'd have a child with someone she knew, not some random guy. Like it would somehow improve her situation. My stomach lurched. I felt utterly disgusted, not just by the idea, but by how casually she talked about it, like it was a simple plan, not a life-altering decision. She was essentially planning to force this man into two options: marry her or become an unwilling father. Zero consideration for his feelings. I wanted to argue, to make her see the sheer wrongness of it all. But my wife cut me off. She snapped, "This is none of your business. You have no right to interfere." My opinion was clearly unwelcome. I realized then there was no reasoning with them. Their minds were made up. So, frustrated and completely unsettled, I left the room. As I walked away, I could still hear their voices, laughing, snickering about their plan, as if it were a harmless little scheme, not something that could utterly destroy a man's trust. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was deeply, deeply wrong. But what more could I do? For 2 agonizing months, I clung to the hope that their conversation was just a bad joke, that Jasmine would never actually go through with it. I tried to convince myself she'd choose honesty. But yesterday, that hope shattered. Jasmine came over for dinner, and she brought David. He's a genuinely good guy, polite, respectful. We were all sitting around, chatting, eating. Then, mid-meal, Jasmine piped up, a huge smile on her face. "I have something important to announce." We all went quiet. And then, the words that made my stomach plummet. "I'm pregnant." A cold chill went straight through me. My mind immediately flashed back to that kitchen conversation. My wife telling her to stop birth control. Jasmine agreeing it was a good idea to trap him. I looked at David. He was completely blindsided. His mouth hung open, eyes wide with shock. My wife, though, she was ecstatic, clapping her hands, congratulating Jasmine like she'd won the lottery. Jasmine turned to David, a nervous flicker in her eyes despite the forced excitement. "Aren't you happy, babe? We're going to have a baby." David blinked. Shock. Confusion. He finally managed. "How? I thought we were being careful." Jasmine let out a nervous laugh, brushing her hair back. "Well, accidents happen, right? Maybe it was just meant to be." David wasn't buying it. He leaned back, rubbed his face, exhaled sharply. For a second, pure panic flashed across Jasmine's face, but she recovered fast. "Oh, come on. This is a blessing in disguise. We love each other, right? Maybe this is the next step for us," she cooed, reaching for his hand. David opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked like he wanted to scream, but he was holding back, not wanting a scene. He managed an uneasy laugh, admitting he was just really, really surprised, considering they'd only been together a few months and thought they were careful. Jasmine shot back, "Birth control isn't 100% effective, and what's meant to be, will be." David took a deep breath, slowly nodding, promising to support her no matter what. My wife, still beaming, chimed in. "Come on, David. Cheer up. This is wonderful. Nobody ever expects these things," she said with a dismissive wave. "But trust me, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to you." Jasmine was practically glowing. acting like it was a fairy tale. She caught my wife's eye, and they exchanged this knowing smile. A silent celebration of their plan working. That look, it made my stomach absolutely churn. I just sat there, feeling sick to my core. My mind was racing. I needed, to say something to David, to warn him, to at least see if he had any idea. But I felt trapped. What if I was wrong? What if it was an accident? What if I blew up his life for nothing? But then, the other possibility, the one that made my skin crawl. What if this was exactly what they planned? What if Jasmine did go off birth control on purpose? What if she chose to make this life-altering decision without his consent, forcing him into fatherhood? That thought was terrifying. She hadn't just lied. She'd manipulated him into a situation that would change his entire future. She'd stolen his right to choose. That wasn't love. That was pure control. And the worst part? He had no idea. He was sitting there, trying to accept it. My heart ached for him. Ever since that dinner, I've tried, repeatedly, to talk to my wife about this. Every single time, she just dismisses my concerns, waves them off like they're nothing. You're overthinking it, she says. It's not your business. But how can I just let this go? I asked her straight up, did Jasmine plan this pregnancy? And every single time, she either dodges the question or laughs it off. Does it really matter? She'd say. She's happy. That's all that counts. But it's not all that counts. David deserves to know the truth. If this baby was conceived under false pretenses, Jasmine didn't just betray him. She trapped him. I tried reasoning with her, but my wife keeps defending her sister, acting like this whole situation is completely normal. It's not like she tricked some random guy, she'd say. She loves David. Even if she did what you're suggesting, she's just helping speed things up. That's all. As if manipulating someone into fatherhood is just normal. I told her, if Jasmine really loved David, she would have been honest. My wife just rolled her eyes at me and said something that made my blood run cold. Men don't always know what's best for them. Sometimes they need a little push. What does that even mean? That men are too dumb to make their own decisions? That women have the right to decide for them? That deception is justifiable if it gets the right outcome? This isn't just about Jasmine anymore. It's about my wife's twisted way of thinking. The fact that she sees absolutely nothing wrong with this, that she actually believes it's justified, it's making me question everything about our marriage. If she thinks this way about Jasmine's relationship, what does that mean for ours? Has she ever manipulated me like this? Have there been times she thought I needed a push and just went ahead, without telling me? If she sees no issue with what Jasmine did, where does she draw the line? Does she ever draw a line? I always believed my wife and I shared the same fundamental values: trust, honesty, the very foundation of our marriage. But now, I feel like I'm looking at a stranger. And if I was wrong about this, what else have I been wrong about? For the first time since we got married, I feel like I don't fully know my wife. And that realization is absolutely shaking me to my core. So now I'm stuck. I know I can't ignore this. I can't pretend it's okay. But if I tell David without concrete proof, I could be blowing up his entire world, potentially ruining my relationship with my wife and her family. But then again, isn't it better for him to know now rather than later? What would you do? Okay, so since I shared this, a few questions have come up, and I want to clear some things up. First, no, my wife didn't baby trap me. That was never even a possibility for us. The truth is, my wife is infertile. We tried for so long to have a child. Went through all the heartache, the hope, the crushing disappointment. But it just wasn't in the cards for us. So, that specific manipulation? Not an option. Second, I don't think she's cheating on me. She's been a stay-at-home wife since we got married, and I've always been the provider. I chose to support her financially out of love. I never thought of her as a gold digger. I truly believed our relationship was built on love, trust, mutual respect. But now, after hearing her talk to Jasmine, knowing what I know, I can't help but feel a little weird. It's not that I think she tricked me into marriage, but it makes me wonder, would she have married me if I wasn't financially stable? Would she have stayed with me if I couldn't provide the life she wanted? I don't know. I always thought our love was unconditional, but now I'm second-guessing things I never once questioned. If she thinks it's okay for her sister to trap a man for security, what does that say about her values? What does that say about how she views me? I don't want to doubt her, but for the first time, I'm realizing I might not know my wife as well as I thought. And finally, if I do decide to come clean to David, I have a plan and proof. Our house has security cameras, inside and out, covering all the main living spaces, like the kitchen and living room. My wife actually insisted on them for safety. And lucky for me, they save footage for up to 90 days. That means I can retrieve the exact moment. The very conversation where my wife and Jasmine discussed baby trapping David 2 months ago. I can show him, word for word, what they said. After that, no room for doubt, no denial. The proof will be right there. But I can't do this anonymously. I can't just send him a video of my living room without owning up to it. If I tell him, I have to confront him directly, show him the footage myself. There's no other way. And that means I have to be ready for everything that comes next. Because once I do this, there's no going back. It could destroy Jasmine's relationship, and it will absolutely create a massive rift between my wife and me. I have so much to think about. It's been 2 weeks since I last talked about this, and things have escalated in a way I simply cannot ignore anymore. Jasmine just announced her engagement on social media. She and David are officially getting married. When I saw that post, I was furious. I confronted my wife about it, and she told me, without a shred of guilt, that David's family is super conservative. His parents apparently insisted he marry Jasmine before the baby's born. Traditional family values, you know? A baby before marriage would be a huge scandal for them. So, in their eyes, marriage was the only honorable thing to do. And just like that, Jasmine is getting exactly what she wanted. I can't let this stand. I've kept quiet for too long. This isn't just a mistake anymore. It's not just some bad decision that might blow over. This is a full-blown, life-altering deception. And David? He has no idea. He's walking into a marriage based on lies, pressured by his family, all because Jasmine made this choice for him. Their engagement party is this week. My mind is made up. I will tell David. I have all the proof. If I don't speak up now, I'll be complicit in this lie, and I just can't live with that. I have no idea how this will end. I don't know what will happen to my marriage once my wife realizes what I've done. But I do know this. If the roles were reversed, if I were David, I would absolutely want someone to tell me the truth. So I did it. I went to the engagement party, just like I planned. I found David, took him aside, and handed him my phone. I've got a gift for you, I told him, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked confused, but I just told him to watch. He hesitated, then pressed play. I watched his face. First, puzzled. Then, disbelief. And finally, pure shock. When the video ended, he just stood there, frozen. Like his world had just stopped spinning. That's when I told him everything. This wasn't fate. This was a plan. An orchestrated lie by my wife and Jasmine to trap him into marriage. His reaction? Immediate. He stormed into the middle of the party, straight for Jasmine. The music died. Conversation stopped. All eyes were on them. Jasmine's face went white as he showed her the footage, his hands visibly shaking with fury, demanding an explanation from her. She stammered, tripped over her words, tried to claim it was all a joke, that she never meant to go through with it, begging him to trust her. But David? He saw right through her. He turned to me, thanked me profusely for showing him the truth. He called it a huge favor. He asked me to send him the footage instantly. I did, without hesitation. Then, he forwarded it to his parents and other family members right there, in front of everyone. And that's when all hell broke loose. His entire family erupted. His parents, who moments ago were celebrating, were now screaming not just at Jasmine, but at my wife too. My wife, standing beside her sister, looked utterly humiliated. Even my mother-in-law and father-in-law, who always defended their daughters, were speechless, then furious, demanding to know how they could be so manipulative. But my wife? Instead of taking an ounce of accountability, she spun around, furious, and started blaming me for everything. Accused me of betrayal, of sticking my nose where it didn't belong. You ruined her life, she shrieked. Jasmine, through her tears, started screaming that I had destroyed her self-worth, that no man would ever want her now. But all their yelling, all their guilt-tripping, couldn't change a single thing. The engagement was over. David was done. Right there, in front of everyone, he announced he was calling off the wedding. And just when it couldn't get worse for Jasmine, he threatened to sue her for what she'd done. I truly hope he follows through. Since that party, my wife and her sister are still absolutely fuming. They keep telling me I had no right, that I ruined everything. My mother-in-law, even though she's still mad at her daughters, also thinks I should have handled it privately. My wife is so angry she's threatening to leave me. But you know what? At this point, I honestly don't even care. If she wants to go, I'll let her. Because deep down, in my gut, I know I did the right thing. And no amount of screaming, blaming, or manipulation can ever change that. I sleep soundly, knowing I chose integrity over complicity, even if it cost me everything.